Hi, sorry about that. So I'm back, but I didn't want to just leave you guys hanging while I went and answered my doorbell. So where was I? We were talking about sock heels, and we were talking about afterthought and peasant heels, which can both be knit either toe up or top down. And I was also talking about short row heels, and short row heels can also be knit toe up or top down. So those are great heels to use, both the afterthought, the afterthought, the peasant heel, and the short row heel, all good heels to use, whether you're going toe up or top down. They are easier to fit to a wider foot than a narrower foot, just because of the nature of the heel itself. And I find that you can't adjust the cup of the heel quite as well on the afterthought, the peasant heel, or the short row heel like you can with a more traditional top-down heel flap. And there's many different forms of that top-down heel flap. So there's like a plain heel flap. You can do colorwork heel flaps. There's the German heel, the French heel, a reverse slip stitch heel, a slip stitch heel, the band heel. There's a whole bunch of them, and I use all of them in my book so that you can try your hand at lots of different socks and find out which of those heels works best for you. But each of them fits just a little bit differently, and it's based on where you put the decreases and the increases for your cup around the very bottom of your heel, as well as for the gusset. So if you think about a traditional sock and where you are putting that heel cup, and this is a very narrow heel cup that I have knit in on a regular slip stitch heel. So this is a slip stitch heel flap and sort of a narrow heel cup that this is a form of short rows right here, where you're working back and forth making a little tiny heel cup. And then the gussets that are along the side, you can see those very strong lines of the gusset here. So I find that I have a lot more control over the shape of my heels when I am using a top-down sock, which is part of the reason that I do that. And I have a little narrower heel, so I like to use just a basic slip stitch heel flap. The Eye of Partridge heel is also very pretty, and the reason that many heels are knit with some kind of slip stitch in them is because it gives you a little extra wear, so that you've got essentially 2 layers of fabric that you're wearing, so that your heels don't wear out as fast. So let's take a little look at, let's see, that's the Chicken Little sock. And let's see. So here is that afterthought or peasant heel. Now I actually did go ahead and I put in some yarn, and then I ripped it out and I picked up my stitches and pulled that out. And essentially you make 2 toes. So if you look, you can see that the heel and the toe look very similar right here on this sock. And this one, this is the band heel. So you have a little extra band. So it's just a difference in where you are placing the stitches that you are using to make your heel cup. It's a little different shape. I showed you that one. This one here, this is a short row heel. So when you look at that short row heel, you can see that all of your little increases and decreases to create that heel cup are down here at the very base. Let's see, what else have I got? I have so many socks in here. There's so many socks in this bag. I got a lot of socks in this bag. This one's fun. Which one did I use with the honeybee sock? Hang on a second. The honeybee sock used the Welsh heel. This one is just, again, they're just all a little bit different in how they shape the heel, but the Welsh heel allowed me to keep the patterning of my sock traveling down the back of that heel just a little bit more. And I used a lot of pearls along there too. Just very nice, very nice. And this one you can see, so with the Welsh heel, very similar to the band heel, because you have that shaping here in the center instead of having very strong shaping, there it is, along the sides of the sock. You have it more in the center of the sock. Very interesting, very interesting. I really love socks. I'm kind of a sock person, I can't help it, I love socks. Clearly, I have a lot of socks on my lap right now. If you are really interested in doing an exploration of socks, I definitely recommend trying out a lot of different heels. There's even one that's called like the Fish Lips Kiss heel, which I personally haven't tried yet, but I know there are a lot of people that love it. This one is a toe-up sock, but you'll notice that the heel flap looks very similar to a top-down heel flap, because this one is called a toe-up heel flap. Now, I found this incredibly fiddly. You might not, but I found it incredibly fiddly, and so I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't one of my favorites. If I do make toe-up socks, I gravitate towards either the Afterthought Peasant or Short Row Heel, because I find that those are much easier for me to work. This one, it happens. It can be done. It takes a lot more thought to make this toe-up heel flap. And you actually, because of course you're going toe-up, so you make the cup here and you increase out, and then you knit your flap up, and as you knit your flap up, you attach it on from side to side, all the way up until you're joined back in the round. And it's a really odd heel for me. But hey, if you love it, that's all that really matters. And that's why when you are making socks, it's really important that you try a lot of different heels, and that you try toe up and top down, and 2 at a time and 1 at a time, and you find what works best for you. Because really this is all about you and how you fit socks to your feet. So, you know, my usual formula is I do a knit 1, purl 1 cuff, and I'm going top down. I knit my leg, I start my little heel flap, I turn my heel, I pick up my stitches, and I work my gusset, and as I work my gusset, I decrease those stitches away so that I get back to the same number of stitches that I had in the leg as I had in the foot. I work my way down, and then I do a pretty uncomplicated standard toe, and there's lots of different toes, which we'll get to later, but that's kind of my thing. So why do I like top down? I've told you several times already, but I like top down because I feel like I can fit the cuff, not the cuff, excuse me, the heel. I can fit the heel cup, that's the word I want, the heel cup, to my heel a little bit better. For somebody that has a wider heel, I can go in and I can put extra stitches here in the cup so that I leave a little more room here in the base of the heel so that it fits a little bit better, which is what I did in this sock. If somebody has a little narrower heel like I do, then I can go in and I can knit it with a few less stitches in that center so that it's a much sharper angle on that heel cup so that it fits that heel a little bit better. And all that does is it makes sure that you are getting the best fit possible so that you don't have as much wear, so you don't get the holes in your socks, because you've gone to a lot of work to make these socks, right? We go to a lot of work to make them, and we love making them, we love giving them, we love wearing them, but we don't want them to just fall apart. So to help prevent that, it's really important that you try to fit your socks to your recipient's feet as best you can. And it's also good to ask them if they like to have shorter cuffs. So here we have shorter cuffs at the top of this sock, because this person likes a little shorter cuff. And that's great. It's all good, because it's all about fitting the sock to your person's personal interest or your personal feet, right? Another point that I need to make on these top down and toe up socks is that you may need more or less room in the heel depending on which kind of heel you pick. So part of the reason that a heel flap will fit just a little bit better on a lot of people as opposed to a short row or an afterthought or a peasant heel is that as you're creating it, you can adjust the width of the heel flap and the length of the heel flap so that you can fit it down around the cup, down and cup around the bottom of your heel better. And that can be done, you know, several ways, right? So you can, I usually divide my total number of stitches in half, and I work my heel flap on half the stitches. So if I have a 60 stitch sock, I'm going to work my heel flap on 30 stitches. If I have a 50 stitch sock, then we're going to work it on 25. And if I find that I have someone with an extra wide foot or an extra wide ankle, what I can actually do is, instead of doing, say, 30 and 30, I can make it 28 and 32, and I can add just a little width to the back of that heel flap so that that person can have just a little more room and a little more cupping in that heel. And in addition to that, instead of making a really narrow cup like I did here, where I've knit basically to the midway point and then started my back and forth short rows and made a very strong angle. See the very strong angle on this sock? I can go in and I can make a little softer angle and make a much rounder angle. So here's this one. I'll try to hold these up next to each other. So here we have a very sharp angle, and here we have a softer angle because this person has a little bit bigger foot, so they need a little more room in that heel cup so that it fits better. So these are all things that you can think about and things that you can do. And people that have like worn handmade socks and really appreciate handmade socks, this is part of why they appreciate it, because it fits so much better than a regular old store-bought sock, because it takes into account all of these little pieces of the puzzle that help to make a sock fit the way you want it. Okay, having said all of that, does anybody have questions? I haven't seen any comments pop up yet, but just in case, I am looking. So if you have a question about a certain heel, about top down versus toe up, about a technique, because you can do all of these techniques, excuse me, you can do all of these heels and toes with any knitting technique, whether it is double pointed needles, magic loop, or socks on 2 circs, or the flyers. Any of those. You can do all of these heels and all of these toes with any technique. Don't let anybody tell you differently. Sometimes it might take a little, you know, thought process to make it happen, especially if you're doing 2 at a time, but it can happen. It can totally happen. And the other part of this is, once you have a heel that you really like, that you really understand, you can swap that heel in and just use that heel in most patterns. Just because a pattern calls for a band heel doesn't mean you have to use a band heel. Now, if you've never knit one, I would totally recommend trying it, because it's fun to try new things, and you may find that you love the band heel. You love it more than you loved that slip stitch heel flap, and so that's what you do from now on, because you just love that band heel. So it really comes down to, again, trying new things, exploring new things. And again, I have like instructions for socks in my Hoppy Feet book, and I even walk you through a lot of the like how to fit the sock to your foot and figure out your ideal number of stitches and all that stuff in the front. Okay, what else do I need to show you? Oh yeah, so I have my little sock started for Ina, my cheater sock, my tiny socks. So I will show you the beginnings of a basic slip stitch heel flap, and then I will show you how I would do a short row heel cup on it, even though I'm not going to make it through the entire heel flap down to where I would usually start the cup. I'll just rip it out in a little bit when I get done with you guys. Okay, let me turn this around. And here we are on my deck. Yep. There's happy plants, lots of happy plants. I went a little bit plant crazy this year. A little bit, okay, a lot. I went a lot plant crazy. And I planted a lot of stuff. Let me move this so the shadow's not quite so bad. Okay, sorry if that was a little bit wiggly. Okay. So, this slip stitch heel flap that I usually use, I'm going to work over half the stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and set this needle up. And again, I just love double points, but if you were doing magic loop or something else, then you could do that too. And all I'm doing is I'm slipping one stitch, and I usually slip it knitwise for this because I like the look of it. I'll lay this down because I don't need it now. Slip one, knit one, slip one, knit one. I'm gonna go all the way across, just like this. Now, if you get down to this pair of stitches, and let's say that you have an odd number of stitches for half your sock, then just knit the last 2 stitches instead of slipping that last stitch. Because what we're going to do now is when we turn this around, we're going to set up and we're going to slip this first stitch and then purl all the way back across. So slip here and then purl all the way back across. And hopefully this is, oh, there, I need to move my hands over a little bit. There we go, purl all the way back across. And purl all the way back across. Okay. Now, as you do this, what you will find is that you'll have some really nice lines that develop, and you'll see that these are your slipped stitches where you've carried the yarn behind. Now, if I wanted to, I could change this up a little bit, and I could slip those stitches with the yarn in front, and that would give it a very different look. But this is what you will see as you are knitting your heel flap, is you'll see this nice line, this nice column of slip stitches, and this nice column of knit stitches that is buried in between. This does make your heel hug in a little bit more, so again, it cups the back of that heel so you have less wear, which again is part of the reason that knitters like to make these slip stitch heel flaps. So again, to go across the front, you just slip one, knit one, and we're going to do that all the way across our row. Knit one all the way across the row. Oop, here's a purl I didn't quite get. See, it's really easy to fix that too. Knit one, and again, there's a purl that didn't quite go all the way through. Okay, and then again, on this back side, we would slip one and then purl all the way across. So, does anybody have questions? Again, I am trying to keep an eye on the comments. Okay. Now, if I were going to just keep doing this, which I will for Ina's little sock here, then I would keep going until I had a heel flap that was approximately 1 1/4 inches for her size. For my size, and I have an 8.5 inch ball, a 9 inch foot, and I wear a US women's size 9 shoe. What I would do is I would actually knit about a 2 inch heel flap for larger sizes, so women's sizes that are like 10, 11, 12. You may want to consider doing a 2 1/4 to 2.5 inch heel flap. And the same thing for larger sizes on men's socks. You'll definitely want to add a little bit of length so that you can adjust the fit of that heel. At this point, if I had my 1 1/4 inch heel flap, then I would figure out if I wanted to do a regular, a narrow, or a wide cup on the bottom of this heel flap. And for Ina, I'm probably going to do a regular one. So what I will do is I'm going to slip the first stitch, and then I know that I have 40 stitches total, so I have 20 stitches back here. So I will knit 9 stitches to start with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Now, if I were doing a narrow heel, I would knit 1 more stitch, and then I would start my process of that slip, slip, knit, knit one, and making the the short row cup on my heel. But with Ina, I'm going to take it one stitch further because she has more of a regular heel. If I had more stitches back here, I would probably do 2 stitches and then 3 stitches for a wide heel. So just depends on, again, your fitting and your shaping of your sock cup. So then I would slip, slip, knit, knit 1. And I have 5 stitches left over here. So that means I need to have 5 stitches left on this side, which means this needs to be a purl 1. These two need to be purl 2 together, which means when I turn this, I need to slip 1, purl 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, purl 2 together, and then purl 1. And you know, I'm looking at that and I think it's a little too much, so I'm going to back this out. Just 1 stitch. I think this will fit Ina better. And you can adjust some of that as you go along as well. So this is my thought process when I'm working on these cups, on these heels. So now I have 6 stitches that I should be left with. I'm just going to turn it around because, again, we're making little short row heels. And I'm going to slip 1 and let's purl a couple, see where we are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have to have 6 stitches on each side at the gap. And again, this is my thought process. This is how I work through figuring out where to put these things. So slip 1, purl 3, and then I'm going to purl 2, purl 1, and that should give me 6 stitches here and 6 stitches here on each side of this gap. This is how I figure it out. This is what I do even when I'm designing, is I fiddle with this until it looks right and it feels right. And yes, there's probably some mathematical formula. Okay, so to continue making this, I slip that first stitch and you're going to knit until you come to that last stitch, and now we have to close the gap. So you'll slip, slip, knit, knit 1, and you'll repeat that process until all of those stitches have been worked and you have decreased these stitches away. And that's what is going to form that little cup then, right here. Now a short row heel does the same thing, but instead of having that heel flap, you just start working that short row heel. And I do the same process on a short row heel and determining where I want to turn it. And then you just work it all the way out. I mean, you just keep working back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until you have a short row heel, until it cups the back of your foot. I'm trying to think, where did that short row heel go? That was the... Hang on, I'm looking for the short row heel. I know it's in here somewhere. I brought way too many socks out. See what happens? Bring out too many socks. Can't find the one you want. Let's see. Short row heel. Short row heel. Short row heel. Nope, that one's a heel flap. Heel flaps. Heel flaps. Gosh, I'm sorry, guys. This is taking forever. I really am looking for it. And I've lost it in my bag. Fabulous. Oh, there's one. Here's a short row heel. Hopefully you can see kind of from that angle. Here's my short row heel. So all I did was just decide kind of where I wanted that heel cup to be. And then you work back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But as you do it, you work your way out and then you have to work your way in. So you work it out and then you work it in, because you have to basically make 2 halves, 2 sides. You have to decrease it all the way and then you have to increase it out so that you can get that heel cup. So, okay, any questions yet? Doesn't look like it. All right, I'm gonna tip this around now that I've shown you how to do that basic heel flap and also how to start working the short rows back and forth on that heel cup. And I can't show you how to pick up the stitches because I don't have enough of this heel flap done to show you how to pick up the stitches along the side. I have a trick that I do when I pick up my stitches along the side as well. Oops, not quite done. There we go. And I like to, when I'm picking up my, here I'll show you how I put the stitches back on. This is the nice thing about knitting and yarn, and if I happen to drop one, it's really easy to pick it up and pull it through the old loop. See, this one got dropped. Just gonna scoop it up just like that. It's not a big deal. When you drop stitches, don't panic. Panicking is like the worst thing you can do. Just be calm. Most of the time it can be fixed. Sometimes it can't, but most of the time it can. And see, I've dropped this one as well. Let's see if I can move that out of the way. Another thing is when you pick up your stitches, you need to make sure you're picking them up in the correct direction. Because if you don't, you'll find that you have twisted your stitch. Sometimes we intend to twist our knit stitches, but sometimes we don't. So, anyway. And these don't have to be perfect because I'm going to go back in and adjust them a little bit. And sometimes I leave those picked up stitches for later too. I'll just grab the one from the row below and keep going. Alright, now I can keep working on the tiny sock for Ina. Yay, tiny socks for Ina. Alright, let me flip this back around. Let me flip this back around. Okay, and up we go. And flippity, there we go. And I'm back. Okay, so when it comes down to sock heels, they're not hard. Some of them are more fiddly than others. All of them are worth trying and exploring. And once you have a better idea of how your sock fits you, or whoever you happen to be knitting for, then you can adjust your socks so that they have the best fit possible to prevent the most holes possible as you wear and love your socks. I will also say that even though there's a lot of superwash sock yarn out there these days, I never put my socks through the dryer. I also don't put, I don't put my bras through the dryer. I have a bunch of shirts I don't put through the dryer. Because I have just come to the point where I would rather hang them to dry to protect the integrity of the fabric or the elastic. When you heat dry and it tumbles around, it's very hard on your fabric. It's very hard on your clothes. And so when it comes to things like, my hand knit socks, right? I really like to make sure that I am protecting them as much as possible. So I do often throw my socks in on a delicate cycle. Same thing with a lot of my other clothes that I prefer to hang, and I let the machine wash them and go ahead and spin out the water. But once I've done that, then I like to hang my socks to dry and all of my other clothes to dry as well, just again to protect kind of the integrity of the sock. And just in case it doesn't have a great superwash treatment on it, then it's also going to help prevent it from felting. So just, a little tip there. It's okay to wash them in the machine on delicate, especially with a top loader, but probably want to hang them up to dry. Okay, well, let's see. So this is Wednesday, so I will be back next Monday to talk about socks again. And if Tina can't be here on Friday, then I will probably fill in and we'll just have kind of a chat session. And we'll talk about some of the cowls that are going on. So she has the Ben Gulben Shrug knit along. She's planning a t-shirt, both a knit and a crochet t-shirt. Crochet along, knit along, craft along, however you want to think about it. I am doing, of course, this sock knit along where I talk you through all the basics of a sock. I'm going to try to write up a little PDF on all the basics of how to fit a sock to your foot and the different considerations that I go into. So if you're interested in that, drop a comment on here and you can be one of my testers to see what you think about it. And then I would think I'd really like to do a knit along with my Elroy shawl in that sea silk from Handmaiden, gorgeous stuff. And yeah, I think I'm gonna plan that probably for later in July, maybe to coincide with Iowa Lie Convention. I haven't fully decided on that yet, but if you have thoughts, then let me know, because I'd like to hear it. If I missed somehow answering one of your questions, I'm so sorry. I will try to do better next time. I really have been watching for comments, but I don't see any yet. So I don't know if you're just very quiet. You're always very quiet when I'm on. You're very quiet. But I will do my best to answer any questions that I have missed by just answering them in the comments. So I will see you all next time. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, keep crafting. Don't forget about Slow Yarn Crawl and filling up your passport, and make sure that you are supporting your local stores, whether that's Black Sheep or another one. We can't survive without your support, and we appreciate seeing all of you. We love bringing you yarn, fabric, thread, lace tools, everything. We like finding new stuff and sharing it with you, and carrying the old standbys because they're just great to knit with. So I really hope that we start seeing each other again soon, but until then, I'm going to keep doing these videos and keep crafting and keep teaching. So I will see you guys next time. That's next Monday. What is next? What is today? Today is the 24th. So the 29th, does that sound right? June 29th? Like almost halfway through the year. That's crazy to me. Anyway, until next time, don't forget we're at blacksheepfiberemporium.com, and I do try to make sure that I put up all the videos on YouTube as much as possible. So I will see you next time.